The obvious question today, we heard from the Secretary General, the war in Ukraine is changing. This is not just a military war. This is now an energy war. It's a winter war. Vladimir Putin wants Ukrainians to freeze this winter. Now, my question is, tomorrow is December 1st. Why are we only just debating this now? We knew he was going to go after the infrastructure. We know it gets cold in Ukraine. Why is it only now that NATO focuses on this?
So the Putin's energy war on Europe has started 1 year ago when he manipulated the energy market with gas. I think we all witnesses ups and downs and extraordinary events which happened to Nord Stream 1 and 2. And we are now in a situation where the Russian strategy in Ukraine dramatically shifted to pure destruction and terroristic actions basically against the civilian populations. So the NATO summit today and yesterday has a clear message that this won't be tolerated, that we will help Ukraine to protect its sovereignty and territorial integrity. We are not discussing it only just now. We knew this may come, and of course our reaction is quite fast, and every NATO member country and any the EU country is doing a lot on the scale of humanitarian action in regard of Ukraine.
But yesterday, though, the Ukrainian Foreign Minister, Mr. Kuleba, he said, we are grateful, of course, to allies and friends, especially in Eastern Europe. But the kind words are not going to do it. They need to be fast. We fix something, the Russians break it again. The country's in blackout. What's going to happen out of this meeting quickly, fast, that's going to be deliverable to Ukraine?
So on this NATO minister, we agreed for a comprehensive package of non-lethal help for Ukraine, which will be very important for the army, but also civilians to went through this harsh winter. Definitely we cannot allow Putin to use winter as a weapon. That's something which is unthinkable, and there's a strong resolution of all NATO countries that will help to Ukraine.
When you have people freezing to death in 2022 in the heart of Europe, you say that's terrorism. Would you also say it's genocide?
Please don't push me into corners. I think even my Czech parliament clearly said that this is a way of terrorism, and these practices, when they, even on TV, the propaganda speaks about destruction of Ukrainian nation, definitely we could be even using words such like that, but you know.
And you mentioned the Russian propaganda. A lot of the narrative now that they say is the more weapons you send to Ukraine, the more you help them, the more this is going to escalate. And it's either Russia wins or it's World War III. Is that bluff? And should NATO call it out?
I wouldn't spin it out of the reality. The reality is that Ukraine wants to fight for their freedom, for the values to which the West adheres, and it is not only our moral responsibility, but in terms of Czechia, it is a very practical thing that Russia will be stopped in Ukraine and that the imperialistic ambition won't continue.
You believe he has imperialistic ambitions?
They are screaming all around the occupation of Moldova and Baltics. You know, we lived 40 years under the Soviet umbrella. This was the Moscow rule. So definitely we don't want to spread this kind of old-fashioned 19th century colonialism anymore.
And of course, in Eastern Europe, the message is clear. We want nothing to do with Russia. We're never going back to that. But that on the next question, we talk about Eastern Europe, a special history with Russia, complicated, difficult. You just said it. We don't want to be in this umbrella anymore. And
it's not complicated. They just wanted to rule over us, and we don't want to be part of the imperialistic dream. It's not complicated.
And you make that very clear. But I wonder, with your Western European, perhaps, partners, countries, are you fully united? Do they perceive Russia as the same type of threat?
Yes, and unity is something which sounds all the time, speaking the EU, speaking NATO here. We always mention unity, and we work very hard to achieve unity. It's not easy. Of course, we have a lot of debates, there are differences, but at the end of the day, we are able to achieve unity, and then what makes us stronger.
And that's what some say Vladimir Putin miscalculated in this whole thing, that he was not expecting that Europe would come up with sanctions the way it did, that you're going to have a response from NATO, from the West, and so on. But just to take it forward as a final question, today you're going to be talking about China. Are there lessons, perhaps, to take from the situation with Russia, this idea that trade and security almost became one, that could be applied to China in the future?
Vladimir Putin definitely miscalculated. The whole war is miscalculation. Maybe internally it makes sense, but Russian leadership needs to be accountable for the fact of this aggression against Ukraine. And the lesson for China is that we need to be resilient, that our economies need to be resilient, and that was the main theme of today's debate. And we also are looking very actively for unity on that. The debate, it's much more diverse. You know that there's a lot of interest in that, but the fact that we are having this discussion, it's a development. 2 years ago, this discussion was definitely not here in NATO quite yet.
And sir, just very briefly, as the voice, of course, of the Czech Republic in this context, when you have the rotating presidency of the European Union, do you still believe, as you did before, Ukraine will win this war? And that means everything. It includes Crimea, too. There will be full victory for Ukraine.
Ukraine will win this war.
No question.
Ukraine will win this war.